Welcome to Valiant Business, where we champion and equip freedom and faith-minded business leaders to fuel growth so they can make a measurable difference in their community and their world. I'm Amy Alexander, and I am the focus czar of growth strategists.
Hey, I'm David Mills. My streaming service cut off the last 2 minutes of the Super Bowl, so it was very anticlimactic of growth strategists.
Oh, that's rough. And I am Chad Alexander. I am the chaos theorist of growth strategists. I'm not going to change my title today, but if I do, I'll be clever as Dave, hopefully.
That was very clever.
That's a high bar, though.
For the first year, maybe ever, I shouldn't say maybe ever. We did not watch Super Bowl this year. I'd say every year, Chad, we at least make some effort to kind of tune in-ish or go to a party or something. This year, we just straight up nothing. And then everyone was talking about Rihanna, and I was like, I don't know what's happening. So that's
interest.
What's up?
Zero interest for me.
No interest.
It's all about the commercials,
negative
man.
interest.
It's all about the commercials. I will say that there was a very well-known marketing spokesperson who was on the news yesterday morning bragging about, he was flexing his muscle about how they had clients with ads in the Super Bowl. And he told which ads they were. And then when I watched those ads, they were very underwhelming. So I don't know if he should have been doing that.
See, it's the thing. Everybody talks about the commercials, but I watched the Super Bowl commercials, even the best ones. And I'm like, okay, that was neat. But it's not like, wow, that's cool. That was so inspirational or XYZ. I'm just like, okay. All right. You spent
Super Bowl
$1.70 billion on that commercial. Okay, cool.
Yeah, they lost some of their magic. They used to be so, I don't know. But all right, let's dive in. So today we're talking about outsourcing. When it comes to marketing, outsourcing is extremely common. It's a great solution for managing ads, website development, social media, content production, anything else that falls in the broad umbrella of marketing. We have been on the receiving end of outsourcing work for years. But is this approach really ideal for your company? And what as a business might you be missing if outsourcing has become sort of your MO, your obvious marketing choice year after year? And lastly, is insourcing even possible? Before we dive in, you should know that we are a team of award-winning experts that build brands, websites, and content with real gravity. And if you're a mission-minded leader that wants to catalyze transformation in your business and community, then hit the subscribe button and journey with us as we explore biblical leadership and practical lead-generating strategies.
Big topic today.
Yeah, I feel like we have to talk about, at least briefly, why do people outsource? What challenges bring people to say, oh my gosh, I've got to outsource? What are top of mind for you guys? In marketing, I should say.
I think a lot of it comes down to, we feel like we have to do this thing. We don't have the talent or knows how to do it, or we have one marketing person and we've already got them maxed out and they can't do anything extra. So we're going to find someone that can do it. And sometimes it's simply a long-term strategy to fill out where we don't want to have to staff. And the other reason we might be doing it is because we have an urgent need of some kind. We need to get our campaign up. Maybe the staff person who's been doing this particular thing, like they're running our digital ads, it's not really working. So you're looking for an expert. You don't want to hire that person full time. So I think that makes sense, right? That we would find somebody who could fill a gap in our staffing.
One thing we see a lot is serial outsourcing for marketing. I think one of the biggest reasons this happens is that marketing tends to be a budget line, not a profit line. So it doesn't make a ton of sense to bring in a staff of marketers. It doesn't make a ton of sense to bring in your own graphic designer or your own web developer. Even large places, like in large higher ed, when I worked in higher ed, we had teams of writers and designers and web people, and we still outsourced branding. And we brought in a huge name in higher education branding, and we were engaged with them for many years. So it doesn't always make sense, but I think the core of that has to do with would you ask a business person or tell a business person that having a sales team is only a cost? Why would you have a sales team? What owner would be like, why would I not have a sales team? How am I supposed to sell stuff? Right?
Yeah.
But when it comes to marketing, it's only ever seen as a cost and a budget line, not really a profit line.
Well, it's interesting to dive into that a little bit. I mean, I think it's interesting to dive into that. So I do think that hiring people for strategy or outside perspective, so branding is a good example. It's not something you do all the time. It's not something you may be really experts at, and you want the real experts to help you. You want to up your game, and so you go find somebody who can really up your game in branding. We do this kind of work, right? And so we can help people to step into a new level of how they are expressing their brand. I think that makes sense. It's not necessarily a permanent deal, though, right? It's temporary. But I do think this thing you brought up about how we treat marketing as an expense line and sales as a revenue line is really interesting, because the real truth is that about 95% of people are going to find you and learn about you and consider you based upon what marketing is doing. And sales is probably going to close the deal. And more, we're seeing those transactions actually occur in the marketing space online, and the salespeople aren't even involved. So we have like digital, RFPs that are going out and being sold, or other kinds of transactions without ever talking to someone. We also see sales going to customer service, who are involved, and we consider them probably an expense too. It's interesting how we view these things. I have seen that. I do think that in a lot of cases, there's an attitude that goes with the outsourcing, which is, this is something I don't really care that much about. This is something we have to do. It's kind of like the trash collection. We have to get trash collected. I don't want to hire a trash collector, or maybe that's too extreme of an example.
No, I think that's a great example.
So yes, we outsource the trash collector because we don't really respect or value what they do. And what we're really saying, when we are saying that we should outsource something, I think sometimes what we are saying is that we don't really respect that activity very much, and it's not a core activity for our company. So therefore, we're not going to try and bring it in as a staffing position. So we'll outsource it, and we'll use up that outsourced resource, and we'll discard them whenever it's convenient for us. So there is a disposability that we come to outsourcers with. We think, well, I can get rid of them if I need to, right? I just let them go. No harm, no foul, right? But people I'm hiring, I'm making a commitment to, and I'm going to train them and nurture them and invest in them, but not those outsourcers. Those guys, we're just going to let them kind of hang. Ignore if needed, fire if we have to. So,
do you think most people hire a marketing firm expecting to fire them at some point?
I do. I think most of them have already done that multiple times.
A bunch of times. Totally.
Yeah. So they use what they can get from them, and then they move on. And so it's an interesting, it's an interesting deal. But in our society today, we're in a gig economy, and so the number of people who are gig workers, the tables are turning a little bit. And the gig workers, are rising up, and they're saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to fire you if you don't fit into my vacation plans, baby.
Oh, how the turntables
spin.
Get it from Michael Scott. Anyways, so can I go back to what was the word you used? Disposableness? Is that a word? I don't know, but
disposability.
Disposability.
Close,
thank you.
It's not a word either. Like, none of those are words.
You. Well, okay. Consider for a minute that outsourcing is disposable work, right? This concept reminds me of disposable work of what Andy Crouch was talking about with, in regards to, restaurants. He talks about how when you sit down and you prepare a meal yourself for your family, it's like good hard work. And at the end of it, even if it's like not that great, it's like, I made this. And I put a lot of love and effort into it, and it's nourishing to my body, right? But on the flip side, if you go to a restaurant, it's like you trade all that good hard work in for leisure, but you don't get as much of a benefit from it, right? And so you end up dissatisfied. So I almost feel like outsourcing is a little bit like this. You know you have to get it done, but you don't take the time or the resources to say, okay, let's get this done correctly and right. Let's just farm this out. And then it's like, oh, I didn't get exactly what I wanted. Well, maybe you shouldn't have treated it like it was this disposable thing. Maybe you should have treated it with some kind of levity and sincerity, instead of treating it like the trash man, as Dave said earlier.
Yeah.
In a gig economy, you cannot afford to play that game, because you're going to get people that you really, really need, and you have to treat them differently. And they are going to be doing things that you are unable to hire, even if you try, because they're going to know that they're valuable, and they're not going to allow you to take up all of their time for a minimal amount of money, right? So there is a value exchange going on here as well. And so I think that there's an interesting dynamic changing in this area. And I think it's interesting to think about how we invest in our outsourced relationships. We actually had one of our clients, we were outsourcing some work for them. They actually gave us a bonus. It's the only client who's ever done it, right? But they recognized that we had contributed to their growth in a meaningful way, and they wanted to share some of their profit. I thought, you know what, that's pretty honorable that they would do that. And it also spoke very loudly about, the kind of relationship that they were working toward.
Yeah. We have been interviewing some new outsourced positions at our team. And, when I'm looking for a new outsourced team, I'm absolutely looking for a partnership. Like, who isn't? Who's looking for a vendor? Who just wants someone who's going to take orders and fulfill the form you filled? Like, I want someone who's going to win with me and lose with me and try and figure out how to do it better, all of those things. But I do think another core challenge why people outsource, which makes a lot of sense, and we're not taking some position that this is bad, but a core reason and a challenge people outsource is simply because in today's world, especially marketing, you have to have so many niche expertise. Like, if any part of your service is slightly commoditized, suddenly you have to have an expert on Reels and Instagram and TikTok and Facebook and Shorts on YouTube. And there's a wide breadth of knowledge. But I do think it's interesting, just the idea that no one really ever expects you to succeed. People hope that you might succeed. They hope you might do something better, but they pretty much expect that nothing new is going to happen other than they fulfilled their marketing quota, and they're going to fire you and then move on to somebody else who's going to give empty promises and then not deliver. Isn't that like the serial outsourcing story we hear?
Is that really the way that we should be engaging with people? Should we be engaging with people in a way in which we treat them as disposable? Or should we look at every single hire, whether that hire is W-2, 1099, outsourced contract of some kind, gig work? Should we be looking at each one of them as someone that we're actually responsible for, that we owe a debt of honor to, that we need to help them grow? Or should we just use them up, right? So this whole thing is really important. Otherwise what ends up happening is like we're becoming part of the extractive economy, and we're going to take people and use them for what we can get. Now, clearly we do live in a market economy, which means that we do want to buy things at a good rate and sell them for more. And we have to be able to do that. The challenge with marketing outsourcing is that we're not outsourcing something that is directly in our minds tied to profit. It's tied to overhead. It's tied to something we have to do to operate. It'd be like buying tires for the trucks in our fleet. We have to have them, and they do help us to deliver goods, but they're not actually making any goods. So they become overhead for us, or the mechanics that fix the trucks. So I think we have to think differently about the way that we are treating people in general. And there's a Hebrew passage that talks about how sometimes the shepherds eat their sheep. And I really feel personally that a business person is a shepherd of the people that they are hiring, no matter what form that hiring takes. And so there is an obligation here of care and concern and goodwill. And, wouldn't it be better if that person got something out of the relationship besides the lowest possible pay? They could learn something new. They could build their own expertise. They could get a good reference from you. They could work collaboratively with people and be part of a team, even if their check does not come as a W-2, right? So I guess I have some feelings about this, I guess, huh?
Well, it's also an interesting study in B2B alignment. Like, we talk a lot about customer alignment and aligning with people that are actually going to be buying your product. But on the other side, products you're buying from other people as a business, aligning with them so that you are building not just vendor relationships, but partnerships that can go the distance, that can have hard conversations, that can say, hey, this is not working for me, but I want it to. That can say, hey, you guys totally upped our revenue. Here's a bonus, like all those things. So that's an interesting sort of offshoot conversation. Here's, I think, what we find when businesses serial outsource for marketing. Their story is not their own. Their story is jumbled and confused. It has had many, many authors and storytellers, and it has many strategies. And it's just sort of this like ball of spaghetti. And then they come to us and they're like, you're the 20th person we've hired. They don't have that much more faith in us than anyone else. They might trust us a little more just because we try to be really authentic. But pretty much they're just saying, here's a ball of spaghetti. I hope you do something better with it than the last guy. And that's pretty sad. A lot of times we're talking to brand owners, people who actually are the founders and who came up with the brand in the first place. And they don't know their brand story or have any ownership or control over their brand story more than the last 5 people they've hired. And then throughout the course of the relationship, often that same founder is not that interested in owning it in the future either. So let's talk a little bit about like, what do we see when people just don't even own their story because it's been outsourced for way too long?
I think one of the things that happen when we outsource our brand story kind of perpetually and without being an active owner is that we outsource things that we can never afford to outsource. So things like our values, our relationships, the trust that we're building with our customers. We actually even try and outsource the sense of passion and excitement. We want someone else to be passionate for us. And then we even try and outsource like the expertise. We want someone else to be the brand expert. And so there are companies that are niche brand experts, like they only work in one vertical. They work in manufacturing, a certain kind of manufacturing or construction, and they know a lot about construction. And so we think we could outsource our expertise to them and they can handle it. But the truth is, they're just going to say the exact same thing for every one of their clients, right? Their expertise is limited to what they know from the outside. So we're taking an outsider and we're expecting them to become the experts in something that we have spent years or decades, and our team as a whole may have many decades of experience in. So we outsource all of that. And so that's a big problem for us to give that stuff away. Think about this. We're outsourcing the communication of our values to someone else. They're going to try and put our values, even if we have a value statement, like our 4 values, like, 4 generic values that we don't really pay attention to, those kind of values, they're going to outsource that. They're also going to become our personality. They're going to represent our personality to other people. That's a lot of stuff I don't think you can outsource. I think you have to own it. And so I believe that the long-term impact of perpetual outsourcing of your brand story is actually real damage to that brand story.
It's kind of like a brand identity crisis.
Very much so. I think it's very much a brand identity crisis. And I'll give you guys an example. When we used to do social eons ago, we would put out there, we'd have really great messaging, very clever. It was approved by the client. We'd send it out there and get a couple likes, get a couple interactions, what have you. And then they would post just a rambling, just something like, hey, this is blah, 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 and they would just go off, and it would get tons of interaction. Or they would just post pictures of a certain event for the month, and they would get gangbusters interaction. Well, why? Because one is fake, enforced, even though what we did was approved by the client and we wrote very specifically towards the buyer. But the other one is real. It's authentic. It's by the actual client. It's inside information.
In 2020, there was a survey taken from marketing professionals. 30% of those that responded said they outsource content marketing tasks, which was 10% less than 2019. So for sure, content marketing outsourced, social media outsourcing, these are things that people are beginning to see don't work that well when you outsource them. Now, I think to caveat that, like we have a really good professional friend who does social media, and he gets on incredible response rates. He fills up events. Like, he's really great. But he's also someone who has a value around owning people's stories. And so he is someone who takes on their values. He takes on who they are and what they're about, and he amplifies that voice and he refines it and makes it better. But that's pretty rare, right? So it's interesting to me that in the market, we're seeing people realize, oh my gosh, content marketing can't come from outside. Social media can't come from outside. And none of us are saying there's always a place for outsourcing. I mean, it's just a fact. You just can't hire everybody. You have to do fractional hiring for niche expertise for sure. But there is also kind of a stewardship of your brand story that has to happen in order for those outsourcing activities to be effective. And that is often what's missing. And no wonder, because who's teaching that? Like, who knows how to do that? You know?
So let me ask a question. How would you instill this passion, the monitoring of values, the need and desire to talk with customers again? I'm kind of pointing this question toward Dave. I'm trying to lobby a spike here. I think you could do it. How do you intentionally plan for that? And so when you do outsource, like, you have these things that are still intact.
Well, a lot of it comes back to this idea of being a brand story owner yourself and understanding that passion and expertise has to come from inside your team. It can't come from somewhere else. And so don't ask people to do things that they cannot do. They should be able to help you to do it better, but they should be doing it with you. So I think that's the big thing, is do it with them. And don't expect them to do it for you. Don't just, if you do decide just to get rid of it and give it away, then what you're pretty much going to guarantee is you're going to hollow out your brand. Now, at a high level, right? At a high level, large enterprise level corporations, they have people who are they're the brand czar. And they are, they're on that brand all the time. They're professionals. That's all they do. They're watching the brand tone, and they're shepherding that brand. They're the professional owner of that brand. But most medium, small size companies cannot afford that. So a large company would have people who would do that professionally, and they would make sure that anyone that's a vendor or an outsource to them, they would in fact be shepherding that brand. So I think that's the big thing. Look at your brand as something you have to shepherd, and realize that passion and expertise have to come from inside. And who is it you want your customers to actually trust in the end? You, right? So don't expect someone else who's not you to communicate the things that build trust and rapport with your customers, because it won't work, right? But there's lots of things that people can do to help you with that, and help you do it better and help you facilitate it. But in the end, the heart of the brand story has to come from the heart of your business. And it can't come from somebody who's just a heart surgeon. Well, I like that. That was good, huh? So yeah, go to the doctor. Hey, do go to the doctor and go get surgery if you need it. But you should, your own heart should be pumping blood, right? Don't outsource that.
Yeah, and you got to eat right and all the things to keep your heart healthy. It's a pretty good analogy, Dave. When we talk about insourcing, especially for category small businesses, mediums to small businesses, sometimes insourcing can be just an overwhelming thought. It's like, I don't have, especially in a recession, right? But there are a lot of people within your team that can own your story without having to be marketing experts. Our team sort of has realized, had this epiphany over time around outsourcing and insourcing and how much we don't like the ethic of outsourcing whole entire marketing teams. And so we do have a method for teaching people this. But I mean, the people within your company that already exist that could be brand story owners, that could shepherd and steward your brand as you are outsourcing those kind of like niche expertise. Obviously the founder, especially if the founder is still the president or the CEO, someone super active and involved. And even if they're not, frankly, they can come back and help do that, just that one thing. Your sales team members. I mean, your sales team members, these are not just people who know the bullet point features. These are people who, of course, are building relationships. And what better way for those relationships to be built than by someone who understands your brand story and has been trained in it and can really like recite the things and own the values, any kind of marketing person, even a marketing intern, is someone who can be trained to own your story. And I think they're really just the idea of creating rhythms around brand story ownership for your entire team, not just having those 4 blah values, one of which almost always starts with integrity, but taking time to talk through that brand story so that you can say it to your team. And so even the people, taking customer service calls or whatever, kind of understand the overall brand story. Really anyone inside your company, I would say.
I think
does that feel true?
I think it's really good. I think that a positive way to look at your outsourcing relationships is there should be a two-way exchange of value. You're paying them, right? You're giving them the opportunity to work with you. You should be including them in being a part of your team. They should have a team experience. That's a part of the value that they get. They should get positive feedback from you, right? That's the value they get. They should get constructive feedback as well. That's value. But the value you should be asking for from them is not just to produce something. You should be asking the question, what deposit will this team leave inside my company? What skills and capabilities will they impart or train up or coach into my team? When they're gone, because, most outsourcing teams are good for a couple of years, depending on what their project they're working on. When they're gone, what kind of gift will they have deposited in my company to make my company stronger? And I think that's how you should view your outsourced relationships. It's a two-way deposit. And then I think also, what kind of deposit will you have made in them? What will you have transferred to them in terms of knowledge, confidence, experience, encouragement? We have a friend we've been talking to, and he's got some great feedback from some of the companies he's been working with that has been very instrumental in helping him figure out how to do his work better, and really what he's really good at. So this relationship has to go two ways, and there's a deposit being made in two directions.
That's so good. I love the turn this conversation's taken, because it's sort of an anti-consumerist turn, right? It's like, let's not consume each other. Let's not snag vendors that we can eat up and throw out and spit back out. But let's build partnerships. Let's I don't know, be thoughtful about what that partnership could be. Let's not put the responsibility on our outsourced marketing team to own our brand when they just can't possibly. They just can't do it. Yeah. They might say they can in their own, hopes and honest desire to help you, but that's just really not possible, and it shouldn't be their responsibility, Do
you think there's a balance here? So let's just say that I'm a business owner. I've decided I'm going to own my brand. I'm going to take charge of it, which is a really good thing for me to be doing. I want my brand story to be something that comes out of my internal values in my team, the real values of my team, the real culture of my company. So that's a really good ethic. Kind of the flip side of that coin, the negative version would be would be the people that think that because they've seen a logo before, that they are experts on logos, or the person that's seen a video before, they've been to movies, so therefore they are a video producer, right? They're a new whatever we would want to call them, right? And so I think that there are limits to what we know, and humility and integrity suggest that we admit when we don't know something, and we also recognize it. And so the danger in becoming kind of a assertive or proactive brand story owner is that you can forget there's a lot of stuff you don't know. And one of the greatest gifts an outsourced team can bring to you is to help you recognize things that you don't know. And so part of the deal is you have to listen to what people are telling you, and you have to be able to take constructive criticism yourself, right? If someone's a vendor, they could never challenge you. They would never be allowed to do that. But if someone is a partner, then you expect them to challenge you and say, hey, I think you need to think about this area because I don't think this is working quite right. So I think that's a constructive way to look at this.
Some of the tools I think you have to have in your tool belt as you are working toward brand story ownership, one of them would be a buyer journey. Because when an outsourced marketing team comes in with a strategy, within a buyer journey are a million different ways to tackle awareness and conversions and, sales and all the things that happen in a buyer journey. But if every single time you go to an outsourced team, they're starting from scratch on kind of what your buyer journey map looks like, how your buyers behaving and how they're interacting, and just the broad overall steps you need to take to be successful. That can be something that, while refreshed every year, is around a long time. And so I think having that in your back pocket is like, this is our buyer journey. Let's not start from scratch yet again, right? Let's not reinvent the wheel. So having that, owning that. I also think having things like all the things that are inside a brand story, having your villain be really well defined, having your unique mechanism of what it is you're offering be really well defined, all those little elements, how you tell your brand story, because you can carry that around from one expert to another. If you need a new website built, you can carry that to a new web builder and say, hey, this is where we're starting. Let's build off of this. If you're going to an ad expert, you can say, hey, this is where we're starting. Let's build off of this. And then you're building upon a really amazing foundation, as opposed to, I don't know, it's almost like building new buildings every time or something. And then you just have this weird street of half-built buildings, And that's
they end up being like a studio lot, where they've only built the facade. And there's not actually anything inside the door. Amy, the buyer journey, the one of the big values of a buyer journey is not only for your outsourced relationships, it's actually for your internal team. And it creates a way for everyone to collaborate around what is the path that our buyer is going to take to go from first hearing about us to becoming a great customer. What's going to have to happen in that process? Where are we doing well? Where are we not doing so well? And so it creates this institutional knowledge about the experience of your buyer as they become a customer. And that is what a buyer journey will do for you. And you can work on that year after year and really create that knowledge. That's a great way to equip multiple people in the company to become brand story owners. If you don't have a buyer journey, you can't really be a brand story owner because you don't know what the story is about, right? Because the story isn't just about you. It's really about your customers. And so that buyer journey is a critical step. I think that's a great thing you brought up.
I also think brand guides, like visual guide for what your visual brand is supposed to look like. If you go to someone quality and you have a really incredible logo built and they build you your typography and your colors and your look and your feel, that's something else you can take. I mean, every time I work with a new organization that has one, I know I know I'm building on top of something that already exists, and what we're going to do is going to really just do better. And when we're building from scratch, when they have no brand guide and they have a half-baked logo, I know we're starting from scratch, and we're going to have to build them a foundation. But that's something else really obvious. And I think most people know that. I think that's often when you're talking about brand and brand story, people would say, well, if I have a brand guidebook of some kind, I'm settled. And that is definitely not what we're saying. But it's certainly one of the tools in the tool belt, without question, I think. Also, a content guide, something that talks about your voice and how you write and how people should be talking, and some of those things can be really useful. Those are a little bit harder to find, I think, but it can be developed, can be useful.
I think there's a great challenge in this, and that is, number one, to realize that you have to be the brand story owner. And it's not just one person in the company. It's really the core team of the company all has to work together to own the brand story. And when you have a relationship with an outsourced team, you should invite them in to be part of that team. And you should expect there to be a relationship of trust that develops and benefit that goes both directions. And that should be something that really helps you grow, as well as helping that outsourced team to do their job better. Imagine bringing in somebody I had somebody come to my house. We need to raise the level of my front sidewalk because the steps were too far apart, and people that were not strong in their walking skills, getting older, couldn't get up the stairs. So I brought in a bricklayer. Now I don't know how to lay bricks. I certainly could mix up some mortar and slap it on the concrete and stick a brick on it. But what they created was this beautiful walkway with these shaped cut bricks. It's really, really pretty, right? So that was a great relationship. It was a defined relationship because he was coming to do this one thing, which he did really, really well. And it was great. But I think if I hadn't treated him well, maybe he wouldn't have done the extra work to make it look that special. He would have just done more kind of blocky square things. But because we developed rapport, he did this really beautiful piece of work. And now I'm left with this beautiful sidewalk. He actually has shown my sidewalk to other people he wants to do work for. So now we have this mutual relationship, right? And I think it's beneficial. So that's what we should be looking for, is these mutually beneficial relationships. We're supporting each other and we are respecting each other, and we're all working toward the common benefit of each.
That's good. One other thing that came to mind before we wrap up is that you've mentioned shepherding, and we've talked about stewarding. And I think that this is a really great time to remind ourselves about who owns our actual business, right? Like, as biblical leaders, as people who allow the gospel to shape the way that we build our businesses, we have this really great opportunity to steward what we have, because it's not ours, right? So the business we get, the amount of work we put in the office, and the revenue produced, none of those things are produced because of us. They're produced because of a generous, loving God. And so I think that's another way to approach this, is just remembering that this is something you've been given, and you don't know what your outsourcers you don't know what your outsourcers believe. You don't know what core values they have around who Jesus is. Probably not the same as yours. And so it's just a responsibility around saying, this business was given to me to steward, and I have to be in charge of it. And I have to be in charge of how it's stewarded by other people. So I think that's a really cool angle, something I'm going to take and think about.
That's good. Thanks for sharing that.
All right. Well, if you are interested in our proven 3-step growth system, we have a free 1-hour masterclass that's yours for the taking. Follow the link in the show notes. We hope you find it useful. And don't forget to subscribe. Guys, thanks so much for joining us. We hope that you found this valuable, and have a great week.